Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Starseed Immersion podcast. Today, I have Michelle Niever with me. Michelle is a psychic medium, trance channel, Reiki master, sound therapist, and holistic health coach with over 30 years of experience in professional healthcare. Michelle blends her clinical background with quantum principles, neuroscience, and energetic anatomy to support deep multidimensional healing. And Michelle and I had a conversation right before the podcast started, and I got to learn a little bit more about you and your interesting childhood growing up. So I would love to share that with the audience if you could give us a little bit more insight. How was it like growing up as a child? Were you always psychic, and how did that end up with you being in this field today?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here. And my childhood was a combination of normal and not normal as well. My parents I grew up in New Orleans and I could see things and hear things and feel things that other people weren't aware of. And it was disruptive for the family. I was coming out of body at an early age and experiencing a lot of different other worlds and beings that other people weren't aware of. And so that was difficult for everyone. And my parents didn't understand it. And they sent me to the psychiatrist or a mental health practitioner very early in life. I think by about age 11 and by age 12, I was taking medications to make those sensitivities go away. I was labeled spooky by the family doctor. And I embrace that now. But at the time, that was difficult as a child to be labeled in that way. On the same note, my dad was into aliens and talked a lot about UFOs and other dimensions. And my mom was into spell work, even though we were Catholic and went to church twice a week. My mother would do what she called white magic. From an early age, it just was normal for me to talk to angels and I had a close relationship with Mother Mary and Jesus. And I'm not a religious person, but it was just normal for me to talk with these other beings and other consciousnesses. I went to school in a convent and no one really questioned it. It was more or less difficult though, because I was in a pretty normal family. And if I had been sent to a psychic instead of to a mental health person, it probably would have been a lot easier of a childhood. And I think that happens to a lot of people. They have all these abilities, but they're a light worker. And oftentimes we're born into these families that are a lot different than us. And we're like kind of like the black sheep. We end up having kind of a difficult childhood because of that. And so I like to point that out because a lot of times people think, oh, what's wrong with me? Why was everything so difficult? And it could just be that you're a sensitive being that came here to be of service in that way. And sometimes we choose those families to help us become more aware and more independent and learn to take care of ourselves and probably other things as well. It was a mix of good and bad, but mostly it was difficult. And I wish that I had kept my abilities going the whole time. But I also want to say that even as an adult, your abilities can come back and they can come back very strongly.
So, um, is it okay if I ask more about your childhood?
Absolutely. Yeah. I just tried to put it in a nutshell, but you're welcome to ask.
So even though like your parents had like they were into like some of the paranormal things, do you find like how come they didn't acknowledge your spiritual abilities even though they were into it?
They didn't know what those spiritual abilities were. They just thought I was having night terrors and sleepwalking. And they didn't understand why. Well, I'll give you an example. There was an elderly family member staying at our house, and I went downstairs before everyone else in the morning, and there were hundreds of moths flying around her body. And I started screaming, and nobody saw them but me. They didn't understand. And I kept coming up with stories like this that people didn't believe. And so they just thought I had this wild imagination. No one really noticed it as psychic. And neither did I until I became an adult and remembered all of these. Well, I never really forgot those things, but I was able to start associating those like, oh, okay, that was clairvoyance, that instance, or all those times I heard someone calling my name, but nobody was home. That was clairaudience, and all those things I felt about people. That was another clairsentience. And so They just didn't recognize it, is all. I think if my mom had recognized what it was, she probably would have sent me to a psychic, but I was a very disruptive child and I was hard to control. I was very rebellious. And I think that really superseded everything else. They just wanted to control me and have me live a normal life.
Could you explain the difference between like a psychic, a channel, and I guess whatever you like, whatever other names that you have that can differentiate? Because I always like, I never knew the difference between a psychic and a channel, or like a
Yeah.
medium, right? Like a psychic, a channel, a medium. Like there's so many different names, and what's the difference between them?
Yeah. So, well, a medium is someone who is bringing information from somewhere else through them to give to someone else, basically put. And the reason I say it that way is because a Reiki practitioner or an energy medicine practitioner, that's an energy medium. So they are a conduit for energy from somewhere else. With Reiki, like the universal life force energy, we channel it through us as a conduit and we focus it into other people. But we're probably talking more about mediumship where we speak. And a medium is giving information from somewhere else, from the spirit world. And they are bringing those messages through, letting a spirit use their body basically to give them energy or information that we can transmit out to someone else. And the ways we transmit that or define whether, it's channeling or or really just I guess it would always be channeling if you're receiving those messages and you're speaking them out. But sometimes it's conversational, like what you and I are doing now. Channeling can seem like a normal conversation, but then there's also like trance channeling, and trance channeling is also something I do. And when that happens, I close my eyes and I allow the spirit to use my body to whatever degree is necessary to speak through me and give the message without causing me any harm. And actually, I my intention is for it to uplift me, and it usually does. And so I get quiet, I close my eyes, and I let the spirit speak through me. So all mediums are using psychic abilities. All mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are necessarily using mediumship, because being psychic is just picking up on the information from somewhere. It could be from the person walking down the sidewalk. You might pick up on their thoughts, or you might pick up on how an animal is feeling. It's telepathy. You're picking up on information from somewhere. You don't necessarily try to find out where it's coming from. You're just giving the information as a psychic or receiving the information as a psychic without trying to define it. So a medium is more like a medium is connecting with spirit and asking or thanking for messages to come through them in a verbal form, whether that be like in a conscious way like us or more of a trance channeling way where there could be various degrees of that where you can be partially conscious to pretty much all the way out of it where the channel doesn't remember what they're saying. So basically channel is, you're a channel, you're a conduit for information or energy. And that's really all energy. I'm not even sure spirit gives us words, but they give us energy. And then our brains translate it into words depending on the database we have in our heads, in our brains. So they say mediums are all psychics, all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are using mediumship. So all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are using mediumship. And then sometimes a medium is trance channeling, where they're completely letting the spirit use their body. And sometimes they're just partially, mostly aware and conscious. Another form of channeling could be automatic writing, where you let the spirit use your hand to write information. Does that clarify it?
It totally does. And then all of a sudden I had this like thing pop up where it's like, and that's different than claircognizance because claircognizance is just your own inner knowing. It's not
Right.
anything outside of you.
Yeah, that's correct. And the way that the spirits communicate with mediums is through the clairs. But you may, when you're using like claircognizance and you just know it, you may just not know why you know it. But there might be a spirit right there giving you the information. So that is how they communicate, but you may not know where it's coming from, or you may not be using it intentionally as mediumship. I think a lot of psychics who are giving information without trying necessarily to do mediumship are already doing mediumship. And one of the reasons I say that is that I teach mediumship classes and I teach them online, but also in person. And people in the in-person class, they'll hold an object and they'll do psychometry where they read the energy of the object. And that is mostly mediumship, but they're just giving the information. They're not saying, I'd like to connect with, who own this. They just hold the object and they say what comes to mind. And so I think psychics are frequently doing mediumship without really realizing it. And I'll just say one more thing about it is I think we've been mediums for our own soul our whole lives and for our spirit guides our whole lives because they speak to us in thoughts. And if you ever had those moments where you're like, wow, I wonder why I said that, that's probably channeling.
Or like whenever you say something and it's like to the other person, they're like, oh, that's exactly what I needed to hear. Like, thank you so much. That
Yeah.
made me feel so much better.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's how it works. And it's so subtle. People don't realize it, but I truly think we're all mediums. And when I say it to a person, oh, you're a medium, it's because I know that that's a person who will use it more easily than someone else. But truly, I believe that that's just how we're structured as humans. We're connected in that way. And we are antennas, basically, transmitting and receiving information.
Now, I would love to know like how you got into your medical field, like how you entered the medical field, and then how did you transition out of the medical field to do what you do today, like with
Yeah.
spirituality?
I always had an interest in some sort of healing profession. And where I grew up and the family I grew up in, Western medicine was pretty much the thing that you would do. And so nursing always appealed to me. My aunt was a nurse, and it just seemed like a good profession. So I decided to become a nurse, not really knowing what I was getting myself into or what kind of nursing I would do. But turns out I really liked it. I became an emergency room nurse right out of school in New Orleans in a trauma center, and it was crazy, and it was interesting to do that, and I enjoyed it very much for a long time. And I enjoyed many of the aspects of nursing I did. I became a pediatric intensive care nurse, and then a flight nurse on a helicopter, and that was a lot of fun. But I started to kind of get tired as I was doing all these high adrenaline jobs. I was realizing this is really taxing on me over time, and I got to the point where I just exhausted all of the areas of nursing I was interested in working in. I was just kind of tired of the profession. I didn't like what I was seeing happening within Western medicine. I didn't agree with a lot of it, and I didn't want to be part of it. And so I learned a lot about started learning about alternative health, and that really appealed to me. It made a lot of sense. And in 1997, I had an accident and broke both my legs and feet. And it was through massage that I started walking again. I was in a lot of trouble after that accident spirit slowing me down to change my path. I realized nursing wasn't the career that I wanted to stay in, and I went to massage school because I thought, well, that saved my life. I want to do that for other people because it literally did save my life. Getting massage, it healed arthritis in my hip. It healed so much that was happening in my body after all those surgeries. So I went to massage school, and I learned about Reiki while I was in massage school, and through many hours of doing massage on people, quiet time, dark room, I started realizing not all of my thoughts were mine. And I started realizing that spirits were talking to me. And I just knew I had that clear cognizance. Like, I know that these are spirits talking to me, and kind of went back to being a kid. Like, this is what it felt like when I talked to the angels and stuff. And so one day, one of my regular clients came in, and I would think the same thing every time she came about this woman. And I described the woman to her. She said, "That's my grandmother." And I was like, whoa, okay. So I kept doing that with anyone who would listen to me. I would keep doing it, and I would go home and talked with my husband about it, told him all the stories because I could hardly believe what was happening at the time. That seemed like something that happened to other people, not me. And so we kept track of it for about 6 months. And I went back and read that journal, and I realized, wow, this is very real. And I decided to go to a medium and also to go to a channeler, two different people. The medium just talked to me like you and I are talking. And I went to a channeler who channeled some galactic beings to talk to me about my history and what I was here to do. And that just verified it for me. I understood like why I was seeing lights in the dark and why I was hearing names of beings coming to me all of a sudden, and talking to dead people basically. And I was so excited. And then I was like, I'm totally doing this now. This is all I want to do. This is all I care about doing is connecting with the spirit world and teaching everyone that this isn't just something that happens to other people. This is how we are built. This is who we are. And I realized it's just so subtle that people don't realize that it's happening to them too. And so I became on a mission to share it with as many people as possible. I think my mission is empowerment of humanity in this way to remember who we are as divine beings here to experience what we are not and have this experience.
I love that so much. When you went to like the Galactic channel, did you receive information about your galactic origins, or do you know any about like any history about your, I guess, like oversouls and other souls and lifetimes that you've lived?
Yeah, well, what I remember her telling me, it was many years ago, but what I remember, and I do feel a particular connection to these groups, was I had started channeling in English before light language, and many different beings were coming through, and including like Mary and a group called Divine Mother Collective, and some others, and then I started hearing names. And the first name I heard was Pleiadian, and I was like, I don't know what that is, because I was, just basically a normal person starting to have these experiences. And then I heard Arcturian, and then some of the I was doing these channelings from these beings who were calling themselves, from these places. They were showing me that stars were dimensional access points for other places, and that I had spent time in these other places, and I knew like their vibration that would come through in language. And so I went to a channel and she said that, and so Arcturian and Pleiadian was coming through a lot. And I went to this channel and she said that my galactic history was Arcturian, but I had such a familiarity with the Pleiadian star system because I had spent a lot of lifetimes working with them through sound and vibration. And so it seems like my true history would be from the Arcturian system, and that I have a close connection with the Pleiadians as well.
And do you speak light language from all the different systems that you're connected to, or just particular ones?
I speak a lot of different light languages, and it seems to revolve around what's needed at the time. And sometimes it'll be a specific group that will be lending in their energy for what I'm trying to do. Or sometimes I'll just thank my guides for a light language transmission to accomplish what I'm trying to do. I don't always purposely connect with a group knowingly who they are. I'm to the point where my vibration is good enough that I'm not really worried about connecting with something negative. So um, I think your question was, do I connect with just one or many? And so it's many. And then when I hear another person speaking light language, I start speaking their light language. It's just like contagious for me. And so, no, I don't think it's really limited to any one. But what I will say, actually, as I say that, I realize that I do tend to default back to a certain one. So I speak a lot of them, but now that I'm thinking about it, I do have a default that I go back to.
Could you share which one that is?
Yeah, yeah, and so I think it's probably a Pleiadian one. Do you want to hear it or just know where it came from?
I would love to hear a little bit of it. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. Sino karin hare namare sino kotan snehan halo sumara kiran soroko pare he imara kirana sa he holano tumaye ike polana hana na dorska he ira sola kiero torahi mohana iki ha itosa ha iki o ha nian ospe haran otorka ha ios ote hai om niash ote awa.
Wow, thank you.
Sure, I could go on forever, but that one felt particularly nice and homey to me.
So, do you know, like, I would love to start more with like, what is light language for those of us who aren't familiar with light language? And then also, do you know what is said when you speak light language?
Yeah, so I'll start with what I think light language is, and I think that light language is encoded in us. I think that we've lived a lot of different lifetimes and we've spoken a lot of different languages, and our DNA, the science has already proven that our DNA is a storage device. 1 gram or a sugar cube size of DNA can hold over 215,000 terabytes of information in computer code. And so I think that all those languages got stored in our DNA, if it's, want to call it that DNA. And I think also we have free will and we can end up anywhere we want to in this realm. We can choose to move anytime we want. And we all seem to have this really easy ability to learn languages. I mean, I can go online and buy a program, Rosetta Stone, right? And listen to a recording and learn another language while I'm driving. I think that it should be easy for us to learn different languages because of our free will to move around, be wherever we want to be, and connect with whomever we want to connect with. And so I think basically also we are projecting our consciousness into some form of a, you could say, virtual reality, not to minimize this reality at all, but I don't think this is who we are. And if that's the case, then why wouldn't that information be programmed into there? And so I didn't know that at first. At first, I just thought it was always channeling. But then I started realizing that people had this innate ability to start speaking it oftentimes when they heard another person speak it, oftentimes spontaneously, and sometimes they just needed to repeat some words after another person and they would start speaking it as if they had been doing it for a long time. And I went, this is part of who we are. This has got to be encoded in us. And I started learning about the DNA, and Harvard University did some experiments where they uploaded a large number of electronic books in computer code onto our DNA without errors and took it back off and put it back on. It was a huge number of ebooks. And so it just started occurring to me that this has got to be part of who we are. And then I started doing sound baths years ago when this started for me. And a man from India came to my first sound bath, and I would play the instruments, but I would also speak in light language throughout the session. And at the end of the session, he told me I was speaking Hindi and Sanskrit. And I didn't believe him because I never learned those languages, but he assured me that he spoke both languages and that I was speaking them as well. And so I started taking Hindi lessons, and I realized I had been speaking a lot of those words already. I started listening to Sanskrit music, and I realized I had been speaking a lot of those words already. And so I realized over more practice and over the years that I was speaking a lot of real words from different languages, and they get put together in such a way that light language is a vibrational transmission. Those are real words from real languages, but they don't get put together necessarily in a way that would make sense if we translated them into English. They get put in, sometimes they do, but sometimes it's just the vibration that the words make. It's sort of like, I'll go back to Reiki, like there's Reiki symbols. I could draw that Reiki symbol, or I could say Shokure, the name of the Reiki symbol. And both of those things are going to ignite that energy, are going to invoke that energy. And so every word I say or every movement I make, right, I'm moving energy. And so the transmissions come, I think, oftentimes through our higher self and oftentimes from our guides. And maybe even on an innate level, we know what we need at times. And so those transmissions come in such a way that they make the vibration we need at that moment, with whether we're manifesting with light language or trying to use it to relieve ourselves of stress or move energy in some other way. What is it? I think it's a tool that we all came here with, that we knew that we were coming to a reality that was going to be difficult. I mean, I think we're here to grow our souls in a very difficult place. And also part of our life path is to find joy in a world of difficulty. And that grows our soul and helps our guides and the larger consciousness system grow. And so we knew that we could use some help. And I think it's really one of our basic spiritual tools that we all have, that we can use to manifest with, and we can use to relieve ourselves of stress, raise our vibration, receive messages in a higher way from our higher way, for lack of a better word, but from our guides. We can receive messages in a way that bypasses our conscious mind and helps move us along the path in a way that there's no resistance. Versus if we heard it in English, we may have a little resistance to what that path might be. And so, do I know what's being said? I get images as I'm speaking. Oftentimes I'll see symbols, but sometimes I'll see words with my eyes closed and speaking. And I'll get images, and then I'll get knowings, just knowings about what the information is. But a lot of times I will look up a word, especially if I say a word over and over again. I'll spell it as best I can, and then I will see what meaning. I'll ask, what meaning does this have? And then I'll look it up on like ChatGPT or something. What meaning does this have? And oftentimes I find that I already knew the meaning to the word. that it was just there. It was a clear cognizance, a knowing of what that meaning was. So I do think that we can translate it or interpret it. And I also think that that would come in different ways for different people. Like some people may be more in tune with what the words are saying. Some people may be in tune with energetically what's being transmitted. And again, it's fun when the words are meaningful, or like when I'll do like a light language transmission to like activate courage. And then I find that I've been speaking some ancient mantra I didn't know that meant I am sovereign. Like that's really fun when that happens. Truly, I think the purpose is vibrational to bring us into whatever vibration we need at that time.
It reminds me of like music as well. Like when we listen to music, like you said, with the sound bowls, like it's a frequency that we hear, and within that frequency, it helps restructure our energy in some way that makes us feel more aligned in however in whatever intention that we had for healing.
Yeah, and I think it literally it changes our electromagnetic field from one that we're normally in where we're not as psychic to one where we become more psychic. And I don't want to get too sciencey, but there's a person I study around this, and he's actually talked about light language and what happens to our electromagnetics when we have focused attention and when we have bliss. And if you can combine focused attention and bliss with light language frequencies, you can really change your, they call it transverse energy waves to what's called longitudinal energy waves. And those longitudinal waves, they push us out into the reality in a way that makes us very much more psychic. And so I think that that's another use for light language too.
That is so cool. So would you say that's different than binaural beats? Because binaural beats was said to have a similar effect, right? Like we listen to the frequency and we get aligned with it.
Yeah, well, binaural beats, there's different ones that will induce different types of things for people. But binaural beats, if I understand correctly, will change your brainwave state from, say, you want to become better at meditating, you could use binaural beats for that. And the tones, the way that they go into the ears, they stimulate the auditory nerve in a way that affects the nervous system and the brain, and then that those brain waves will change to something that is more of a meditative brainwave state. So there's a lot of different binaural beats you can use, and so I think it is similar because with intention you can, now I don't know how scientifically they've shown like these different binaural beats do these things. I think they've probably measured brain waves and messed around with different frequencies because I think those are pretty scientific. But when I think about it, it's like the analogy to light language. It seems like the same thing to me, right? You're just tuning different frequencies to bring yourself into a certain vibrational state. So does it necessarily sync up the hemispheres of the brain and change the brainwave states in that way? I'm not sure, but I do think it changes our brainwaves and it changes our electromagnetic frequency in a very similar way, like as music or binaural beats. And also, what comes to mind when you ask that question, I think about the nervous system and how I read a neuroscience article once that said the sound of our own voice is specifically healing to our own body. So if we're using our own light language, especially if it's spiritually guided, that could be very healing for us. And I guess that's it on that.
Like that. And I feel like I was meant to hear that because I feel like for me personally, I've been working through a lot of like fear of being heard and seen, and that comes from childhood and like repressing our own voice. But now, like, there's this urge to be like, speak more, speak more, speak more.
Well, there's a massive awakening happening on the planet, right? And we're feeding off of each other with it. We're feeling that. And that fear of opening up in that way, I certainly had that too, especially after all those years of being smushed down and told that's not real and you're crazy. So a lot of people are really afraid right now to, it's one of the biggest things people come to me for is the doubt around themselves and the fear of the judgment. And even though we're having this massive awakening in the realm, there's also a huge vibration of doubt that still exists. And there's a division also between the sexes with that. Like, I mean, not to be negative, but it seems that there are people who really will make fun of the things we're talking about. I mean, I saw a video just the other day. I was kind of surprised. They showed a picture of someone speaking light language and they were saying, oh, it was just gibberish. And I was like, well, you can believe what you want. It's just we live in this world where there are many people who have doubt, and we're all connected into the same network here in this realm, and we're all connected through the vibration of the heart. And so we're going to feel that doubt around us. And And so I think that's a kind of an unconscious or an unseen force that we're up against, and that we have to empower ourselves as much as possible by these connections and by spreading this information so that people can keep moving forward in a world of doubt and fear around being judged by people who sometimes aren't too nice about it. That's real. And it's not necessarily ego either, that, we have a basic survival need to be accepted in society. And so it all makes sense. But I think the answer to it is we empower each other. And if I don't listen to some sort of spiritual information or connect in with some sort of spiritual information on an almost daily basis, it's easy for that other vibration to start overriding.
I feel the same way because recently the information that I've been receiving is that because we are moving into this new earth, that these are new vibrations that we're receiving. We've never really felt them before. And so, and I follow astrology as well. And my understanding is because we are moving into a more spiritual space, we're actually leaning more into our intuitive abilities and we're being called more to follow the vibration, the frequency, and the intuition of wherever that's guiding us, rather than the logical knowing of like, does that really make sense from a logical
Yeah.
perspective? Instead, it's like, okay, maybe that doesn't make sense what I'm doing, but like my intuition tells me to move that way, or like this vibrational space, perhaps I don't, right? Like perhaps you don't know you're a star seed, perhaps you don't know you have these psychic gifts, but you feel called to like maybe take a class in it or go into that space. It's like something is pulling you towards that.
I totally agree. So many people right now are just really wanting to explore, what are my gifts? Who are my guides? How do I get more connected? And feeling that push. And I think that we are literally, as a species, becoming more psychic because of the changes that are happening in our realm, like the changes that are happening on the sun and the magnetics that are happening on the planet. Protection around the planet is far less strong than it even should be at this time. They're finding through indirect evidence that we're having auroras way far south where they've never had them, or where the solar storm was kind of mild, but the auroras are much farther than where they should be for such a mild storm. And all of that information, I mean, the sun is a gateway. It's a representation of our creator. And so that information that's coming through those solar events, right, that's affecting us. We're feeling the push. I think we're literally ascending in our vibration. The earth is speeding up in rotation. It's been measured. The poles are shifting. The magnetosphere is weak. It's the veil, right, between worlds, and it's getting weaker. We're feeling it, and our guides are able to get through. I think the veil is thinner and they can get through to us more easily. And we're building an empowerment around the world, and we have this ability to connect with each other through no matter where we are in the world, we can connect now. Like versus when I was a kid, all we had were encyclopedias and three channels on the TV. And so, my grandma didn't talk about this stuff because there was no one to talk about it with, right? And I think that when we have that interest, all of a sudden we start feeling that interest about something, whatever it is, with regard to these spiritual topics and psychic abilities. I think on some level it's either a remembrance that we have, an activation astrologically, or our guides pushing us, or all three to move in that direction.
I feel that enormously. And I feel like for me personally, because I had my awakening, I would say like officially 2023 when I got into spiritual work. But like 2020, like when COVID hit, was the initiation into like, okay, you're leaving your job in the corporate world and we're guiding you through, but you have like no idea what is happening. And that's when I was like, oh, like I don't want to be in my corporate job. I'm going to explore entrepreneurship. And some way, somehow, I ended in the spiritual community. And that's how they guided me through it. But I didn't know. All I knew at the time was I'm just following my gut. And I kept
Yeah.
hearing mentors. And I just, even though I had a logical, like a very logical, structured background, I didn't understand spirituality or had psychic abilities that in that way. All I knew was like, this is what's calling me next. And I just followed that
Mhm.
and I followed that. And it took me exactly where it needed to take me into the field I am. But from like 2023 to 2025, today, my psychic abilities and my spiritual gifts have exploded exponentially. And I was like, I'm in a whole new world that I don't like, I was not familiar with just three years ago, right? And
Yeah.
I can only imagine all of us now in the collective waking up like that. Like, where are these? Like, what am I hearing? What am I seeing? People seeing UFOs now, like everywhere.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing how many people talk about psychic abilities, like people in what we would call normal professions. Like I know people who are police officers and police dispatchers and prison wardens and customer service agents and just all different walks of life talking about their abilities and saying, I don't know who I can talk to about this. And I'm like, you could talk to anyone about this almost because 10 out of 10 people I talk to want to talk to someone else about it. And anyway, the more we embrace it, I think the more exponentially it grows. And it sounds like that's what you've been doing.
Oh my God, I keep getting guidance. Like this year, it was like start a podcast, and I was like, yes, I will listen. I was like, and it's interesting because for the longest time, I was like confused about my purpose. And even now, I still feel a bit ungrounded because things are just moving so fast. So the only thing I can do is whatever my guidance is telling me, which is what I'm sharing. It's like we're going through things that we cannot predict. And many of my colleagues have been saying the same. They only give us the next step. They don't give us like 5 steps ahead of time. Even when I try to channel for like collective energy and stuff, it's like it comes in and it's like we're not telling you what's happening next. We're actually going to empower your audience members to connect to their own intuitive guidance and follow
Yeah.
what's being said next, right? And I've noticed that in a lot of my sessions as well. I don't channel the information. I'm being guided to ask them to connect to their intuitive guidance to see what they're getting.
I'm experiencing something very, very similar as well. And also free will probably has something to do with that, right? Because they can give us potentials and they can, show us which ones has the highest potentials. And if a person needs to see that, they'll show it. But truly, they're big on us getting to make our own decisions and not getting in the way of that. I mean, that's what we're here to do. So I'm getting the same thing. And sometimes people are disappointed, right? They're like, tell me the answer. Like, no, that's not what they're going to do for you. You are in this reality to learn it on your own, but they're going to guide you in this way. And also like give people, sometimes I end up asking people questions just so that they reflect on stuff. And I'm like, Spirit told me to ask you this question. And it turns out that it turns out to be a really good reflection and they come to an epiphany around it. It's interesting how the guides are pushing us to this awakening.
Especially self-empowerment, because I noticed that for me too. Like I won't get answers specifically, like I would have to ask and then I would receive a vision and it would empower me to receive the answers myself versus like seeking externally for validation. But it does help. Like it does help to have someone say like you're not going crazy, like we're I'm having that experience as well.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, it's like letting spirit drive too, like just trusting those urges that you get. Like spirit often, our higher self often works through just giving us urges like, oh, that doesn't feel good, or that feels good, or I need to know that. And it sounds like that's what you've been doing too, is just kind of following each step so that you get to experience that journey and choose for yourself where you want to be without seeing the bigger picture. It's quite an exercise that we came here to do. And outside of the body, right, we know all those things. We know so much more. And to come into this reality with this theme of blindness, like we don't even know what's happening in our bodies, is a really strange experience of who we are not.
I was just channeling for like a video that I wanted to post, and they were showing me in a vision that what we feel like as a collective right now is that it's like we're blindfolded, and the only senses we have is like all our other senses, right? Like our sense of feel, our touch, our intuition. Like we have those senses, but like we literally cannot see
Yeah,
anything.
it's crazy, right? What an interesting experience we came to. I really do believe that we came here to experience something that is very different than who we are for the purposes of growing our soul and helping our guides and the larger consciousness system, source, energy.
I'm very curious for you personally. Have you been receiving any intuitive guidance to expand in different ways than you are already doing so now?
The most recent way that I felt extremely, extremely pushed to do it was through light language activations for people. I would just be in the middle of a reading, and suddenly I would just keep getting pushed by spirit, like tell them they can speak light language, tell them they can speak light language. I was like, okay. And sometimes it would just literally be in the last 5 minutes of a session, I would hear, tell them they can speak light language. And I'm like, what am I going to do? So I just started telling people, okay, you can speak this thing called light language. A lot of people didn't even know what it was. And what really blew my mind about it was all of those people that I told, they said, tell them to repeat these words after you, and then they'll start speaking it. And then they did. And it just started happening. Like sometimes it would happen to all four people I would see in a day. I was like, how is this even happening?
Oh,
Right. And I felt really weird about it because I was like, can I really be this person who's telling every single person they can speak light language? Apparently, I can be that person because that is what I've been. It made me uncomfortable, but it is what I've been doing, and it's interesting because also at the same time that it makes me uncomfortable, I feel so empowered to keep going with it, to move forward with it, and Spirit gave me a method to use on people that is a combination of energy medicine techniques that I do, along with this light language activation where people repeat after me and again, it felt weird and it felt like I was putting myself out there in kind of an uncomfortable way and I didn't know what the results were going to be. But it turned out to exceed my expectations. And the other thing I've been called to that made me uncomfortable, and I bring up the uncomfortable things because sometimes those are the biggest things we really need to do, right? And I'd been for many years delaying putting myself on video. And for years, all these years, Spirit has said, you need to make videos. You need to spread the word. You are a way shower. And I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And so I did recently start doing that. It hasn't been a long time. I started to make videos and to just find things, from sessions that I thought would be meaningful to the collective or from classes I taught. I started just picking out clips from those things, and that was an easy way to get started with it. And it turned out really well, and people are being helped by it. So that was one of the most uncomfortable things I've done in years. And so yeah, and I think it's all about just my path, and I'm being pushed harder on this path to be a way shower in the way that I do it.
that is so beautiful. Thank you. So courageous.
Thank you for asking. It's scary, but also it's really empowering at the same time, and it's fun, and it really I don't even know how to express this. It makes me feel a certain way about humans, about humanity, like how special we really are. Like to see what's happening, it really it brings me a lot of love and gratitude.
Oh. That makes me feel so seen too, because I have been feeling the same. Like I've been getting downloads of doing new things, and I'm like having that doubt, but like being able to hear your story gives me the courage to keep going.
It's needed. It really is needed, and it also is it's a good, powerful lesson in like accepting ourselves for who we are, where we are right now. Okay, this is me. It's an exercise in self-love.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Um,
Yeah, thank you.
I would love to ask your guides if they have any messages or transmissions that they would like to share with the audience.
Yeah, let me just get quiet and take a sip of water first. We are the Council of Nine. There's going to be part light language and part English. We are pleased to meet your vibration. Nagedesiniero Sudanan, Nanin Kashkaron Manankian Chio, Nahaya. And we speak today of empowerment. Ishnayokun Dastiaratuna Maka. We wish to speak to you today of the structure you have chosen for your soul in this life and to empower you around the abilities that come with that. Kula saman inki anan uke enki umchai kanund. I am pleased to speak to you of the genetic manipulations that occurred over many itinokumanaka, what you could call experiments, reiterations of form throughout genetic manipulation for the human form or the avatar for the soul to transmit in the energy and live a life of humanness. We, Ikinosuna, we have worked ikahu to create this in a way to honor the sensitivity of one who walks on earth, but also the sensitivity of one who is of plasma of light and projecting into the human avatar. We understand that the difficulty within the human body is one of greatness for many, and we speak of not only physical pain, but also emotional pain, and even the pain that comes with difficult decisions. We understand that you are walking in two worlds through this structure, and we commend you. Your soul has chosen a path of great honor and also what you might term difficulty, but we would like to say that we see a purpose behind it in that you are bringing life to this world, and you are changing not only the energy of your soul through this endeavor, but you are also contributing to the Yusunomuka greater cause and the greater universe, and the records of all will change because of your existence, and the vibrations that will ensue because of your choices will be part of the world that is created in every day, in every moment. And we would like for you to understand this creative capacity that you still have, even while compressed within the human avatar. You are a creator soul in your divine right, and this has not left you. You have not lost this ability. You have only found that it is not always visible to you. And we would like to say that your thoughts outside of the human body become instantaneous change. You can create Shutumhinakana pretty quickly outside of human avatar. However, compressed in this structure, it takes time, and your thoughts are the beginnings of your building of reality within your field. And it is not only your thoughts, but how you feel about your thoughts that builds this reality. Do not doubt your ability to manifest. It is but slower than you expect. Kiran Chumtanka, because you do not see the energy from the human body, but the energy is there, and you are building in the energy field with every thought you have and creating what you create through these thoughts. And so we remind you to stay focused on what it is you would like to see in your world, as you have come as powerful spirit and not lost this ability to create what you want. It is only that you cannot see it most of the time. We would like to remind you that your ability to work magic, move energy, bend light is within your capability, and that you are all built with structure that is what you call psychic, and you are able to communicate with many different realms of consciousness when you Visanakurumankumahiti, train your mind to be quiet and to accept the thoughts that come from outside of you in a meaningful and mindful way. We are here to support you, and we love to see what you are doing. We thank you, and we are quite pleased with our creation and that it works so well for your soul. And we welcome this integration and this itumu, this union with you. And we thank you. Itan oroskuna imeron.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much, Michelle.
You're welcome. I really left her in that one, and I hope that made sense. I'm not quite sure what exactly all came out.
Oh, it definitely made sense to me.
Good.
I got the vision of, and this is very resonant because I was called to like create something called the Creator Academy. And really, the way that I saw it was we are like wizards with our wands, and we can just manifest, like, boop, we can just manifest things out of thin air with our magic. And what the channeling said was that we are able to manifest exactly like that. So it was very validating for me to hear, and I'm sure many who are going to tune in.
Yeah, I think we're creators on a lot of levels, and we don't realize, just like I don't see the energy coming out of my cell phone, that thing is doing something. There's energy coming out of it, and I don't see it. And that's the same thing with my thoughts, right? I'm building in the energy field, and it just takes a while from the perspective of the human nervous system to see that coalesce into the physical, to bring that into. I remember a story I heard from a guy I took an out-of-body class with, and he was telling a story about how he was out of body in his friend's backyard, and there were all these tents in his friend's yard that weren't normally there. And so the next time he talked to his friend, He said, "Are you planning something in your backyard?" And his friend said, "Yeah, I'm planning to do a retreat." And I was thinking about putting some tents out there. And when this guy was out of body, he saw the tents already because they were already manifesting in the energy field, and he could see that from the out of body state. And I think we're always doing that.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, so would you say that like when we go into a meditative state or we go into a quantum realm and we see these visions of things that we are going to create, or we see the vision itself, meaning it exists in the quantum realm, would it be that it's our free will that we bring that through, or do you think it's a divine timing thing and it will come in its own timing? We don't have to force that through.
Yeah, I don't think we want to force it because that would slow it by causing resistance. But what we want to do is stay focused on it because we may not necessarily know when that timing is going to be lined up for our life path for it to work really well. But if it's something that we were feeling called to, and we see the vision around it, right? I think a lot of times people don't manifest what they want because they're not staying as laser focused on it as they need to. That the focus gets diffused, and that it sometimes it's not that it's out of timing. It's just that people aren't focused enough with that intention. They don't see it creating in the energy field, and they think, "Oh, it's not working because it hasn't shown up yet." It just takes a while to show up here. So. It could, of course, be a timing issue as well. If, say, I wasn't ready for something in my life, then things might not line up for that to happen yet. I may have to go through some more other experiences before that happens for me, is what I mean. So, but I do think that when we feel that strong pull and we're seeing that vision and we're having trouble letting go of it, we're feeling that push or pull to it, then I think that is the time to focus on it because why else would we start to have those feelings and those knowings and clear senses around it if we weren't getting information about it? I don't think we're just making it up. Does that all make sense how I said that?
It does make sense because I would say like in the beginning of the year, like right around January, I got huge downloads of a bunch of things, of this podcast, of a book, of programs, of this and that. And I was just like, I'm overwhelmed. Like, what am I supposed to do with all this information? And so I kind of just like let it go. And what happened was like one of my speakers from my summit last year reached out to me via email and she said, I remember speaking with you last year. You said you wanted to collaborate again. Like, are you still doing your podcast? And I was like, I don't have a podcast, but interesting you should mention because I was like given guidance to do a podcast. So I was like, I think it's time. And I thanked her. I said, oh my God, this is such divine timing. I was given guidance to do a podcast. You reached out to me, and that was like my validation to go ahead and do it. And she was
Mhm.
like, it's no coincidence. She's like, I heard it from spirit to reach out to you. And so I think we are divinely guided that like even if we get the vision and maybe we're kind of like veering off our path a little bit, like there's guidance everywhere. People are like, we're receiving so much help. And that was such validation for me that somebody reached out to me and they said they got guidance to reach out to me. So I was like, we like you.
What a wonderful synchronicity. I think our guides definitely work through other people in that way and give them urges too. I think that's a very real thing. That's so cool. What a great story. And I'm glad you got back on your path with it.
Yes, oh my goodness. But like you said, like having someone else to connect with really, really supports it because it's a constant reminder, like every day of being like, don't doubt yourself. Like you were given this vision for a reason. Like, don't doubt yourself.
Yeah, keep moving forward. And sometimes it just takes a while to understand what that is.
Yeah. And look at the
Yeah.
magic that we're creating right now.
It's pretty amazing what we're creating right now, and just the amount of people who are suddenly wanting to be of service by using their intuitive abilities. It's really beautiful.
Well,
I'm
thank
excited to be here in this time.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes, me too. And we were right there, right at the precipice. Like we didn't have to endure this for like a long, 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 long
I know my husband and I talk about that sometimes.
Man, well, I had such a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful light and wisdom with us. Would you like to share your free gift with the audience members?
Yeah, sure. There are a couple of activations that you can listen to and also download. And one of them is for reducing chaos in your mind and in your energy structure, and just to help you achieve deep peace. Then the other one is basically for activating you in whatever way you're needed for your multidimensional abilities to come online and for you to feel empowered and balanced with that. The one I'm talking about, I forgot what I titled it.
I do have it
It's
here. Would you like?
Yes, please tell me. I can tell you which one's which.
Okay. So it's called The Seed of Sound, Soul Code Awakening.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. And that is me and another practitioner doing a light language, and there's also sound in the background. And that one is for awakening your abilities. And basically, it works by bypassing your conscious mind with information, as well as the vibrations that came through for us through the intention and the light language that day. I would say start with either one, whatever one resonates with you the most, you can start with, because they both are going to help raise your vibration. And the more you listen to them, the more it's going to take hold within you, basically, and the stronger it's going to get. If you can use earbuds or headphones when you listen to them, that's even more helpful. You'll receive the tones better. And some of those tones are going to go in different ears. It's set up that way. So to do something with your nerve, to relax your nervous system and to open you up. So both of those are available, and you can listen to them directly from the website with the code, or you can download them and keep them forever.
Would you like to share your website with them? And I will also post that in the description box below.
Yeah,
But if they would like to connect with you, do you have a website they can visit you at?
it's sacredawaken.com.
Amazing.
Thank you. And you have the website address that you have. It's not the gift for your guests. It's not open to the public, so you'll have to have that special address and then use the code to sign in, and you'll have access to the videos.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So everyone who's tuning in, I will have the link linked in the description box with the special code so you can have access to Michelle's gift. Thank you, Michelle, for being here and sharing so generously with us your beautiful frequency, your light, and your presence. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you all in the next episode.